Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Good morning, everybody. Before we start this week's project, we're going to do a little bit of wrap up on last week's project. I was shamed. And I was called out, and I felt personally persecuted. No, it's all good. A viewer of the, and you know who you are, a viewer of last week's video made the quite honest point. And yeah, I did not like how I had turned out doing the felt on the bottom, so I refelted it. And it really wasn't that it was patchy, it was that it was so thick. And what was bugging me was that this guy ended up sitting, you know, like a quarter of an inch off of the table. And I didn't like that gap underneath because it has this nice smooth feathered edge here, and then all of a sudden it had a gap. So I took his recommendation, and I removed all of that, and I replaced it with the regular black felt, but I just didn't carry it all the way out to the edge like I normally do. It was how the black was going to look around here that I was not going to like. And the problem with that is, or the reason why that is I go to the to the craft store, and they have felt that is self-adhesive. There's an adhesive stuck on the back of it, but they only have that in black. There are plenty of felts that they have. They had a white felt. I could have easily gotten a white felt, but it is not adhesive on the back. So I just go in and I buy a chunk of the black adhesive with the black felt with the adhesive on it. But I just didn't want it coming out to the edge. So I took his advice, long way around to saying yes, I redid that. Now I did take exception to what he was saying about the fur being all washed out, and I think that is a trick of the camera and the lighting and the harshness of the lighting, because there is still plenty of contrast here. Nothing to worry about on that. So before I put this on the shelf and proceed with today's work, or this week's work, I wanted to give a little coda to the work of last week. So I wanted to thank everybody for their kind Christmas wishes. It's always heartening to hear people coming in, people that you don't know. You know, I do these videos and I put them out. I don't always know how they're received, except for when people write comments. So it's nice that so many people like this particular build, and I hope to do 2022 almost as much justice as I did 2021. I still need to go check the books, but I want to give you the breakdown of how many kits were actually finished in this year. So let me put this Tauntaun back on the shelf, and I'll come back and do some math. Welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday. It's a weird week. It's that week that sits between Christmas and New Year's 2021, and it's like, especially with Christmas being on a Saturday this year, it threw my days off. It's one of those things where you just don't feel like it's worth gearing up to start anything, because you just get through one holiday and you got to start thinking about the next one. But I did my math yesterday like I promised. I have for you the list of things that I finished this year, and it comes down to 30 kits. 30 kits this year. Some, you know, I spent multiple weeks on. Some I did the same week, 2 or 3. But it works out 30 kits, 13 spaceships, 6 cars, 8 figures, 2 airplanes, and a prop. And I count the Comlock and stun gun as a prop. You could, you know, if you're going to split hairs, call that 2 different things, but it's not. It's one kit. But that's how it works out. 13 spaceships. And this is, I started out the year with the second half of the Enterprise E. And there was like 7 weeks into January and early February of finishing that big E. And before you get to it, the smart aleck out there, no, there are no partridges in a pear tree here. It's 3 spaceships, 2 airplanes, 6 cars, and you know, but no partridge in a pear tree. But it was going in order, and the easiest way for me to do this was to look at my videos from the last year, go from the oldest to the newest, and see, you know, which ones they were. So we had 7 weeks of the Enterprise E, and that was only the second half of it. So I counted as finished in this year. The Delta Flyer, Blue Leader, the big X-Wing, Snoopy and the Red Baron, that's the 2 airplanes. That 350 scale Discovery, 2 Wacky Racers, which is 2 cars. The small Wandering Earth truck, and I'll get back to that in a minute. The Lotus from Prisoner. Lazarus' ship, that was a couple of weeks. The Hulk, a Stormtrooper, Laser Blast Alien, that's one of the week that I did all those figures in the same week. The Grissom, that was a 7-week project on the Grissom. It's hard to believe that I spent that much time on it. 7 weeks on the Grissom. Ratfink, the Colonial Shuttle from Cosmic Scale Models, and then all the little extra bits that went with it. Jupiter 2, that was 3 weeks, and that was one of the Dear Departeds. That's one that I built. It's not even here. I sent off a few kits this year to some people that wanted them. Jupiter 2, Mechagodzilla, the 2 Voyager build. That was building 2 ships at the same time. Baby Doll, and that took a couple weeks. The Spinner, 5 weeks on the Spinner. Comlock and Stun Gun, we're coming up to just recently. Kodan Deck Fighter, the Scorpion, the Han on a Tauntaun. Oh, I'm sorry. In between there was the wee Razor Crest and the Mando, and then the Kodan Deck Fighter, Scorpion, and then Han on the Tauntaun. And that's how I finished out my 2021. Now, getting back to the well, maybe not finished. Getting back to the small Wandering Earth truck. That is this guy here, and that was this was the back when I was grousing about the scale of things and the fact that it never said that it was a deformed kit on the box and all of that. I don't even want to rehash that. Well, back then, shortly after that, a kind viewer from the Orient, from Asia. I'm gonna see if I still have it. Let me dig around here, because I kept it. Let me see if I can still find it. Yes, it came from Hong Kong, from a Stephen Liu. I don't know if he wanted this brought up, but I did it anyway. Stephen Liu took pity on me, and I'm going to black his address out. He sent me the actual kit. He sent me the kit of the thing that I wanted to get, that I thought I was getting. And that's what I'm going to be building in this next couple of weeks. It fits 3 criteria. Again, just like last week's Han Tauntaun, it was a gifted kit. So there's your Christmas tie-in. It has a snow theme, although I'm not going to go nearly as wild with the snow on this as I did on Han. And most importantly, it fits the space that I've got. Because, dear friends, I'm telling you, I'm starting to run out of room again. It's starting to become an actual issue. This is a semi-truck. It's long and skinny. It will fit on the empty shelf that I have above my window in the display room. That shelf I had been reserving for something long and skinny, and it was either going to be this truck or the Seaview. And I built the Seaview years upon years ago. It's not that much fun to build. It's one of those things where you build it and then everything is encapsulated inside, and if you can't see it in the front windows, then why bother? So I've decided to put the Seaview aside, and I'm going to be building this long truck. This is the actual truck, and it actually comes with 2 different modes. You can build it as a transport truck or as the cargo truck. And since this was done as the hauler, that the transport truck, as the cargo truck, then I'm going to be building this one as the transport truck. And I believe if you go back and watch the Wandering Earth, it was the one that housed the motor, or the big engine parts for the Earth engines. But it's going to be this guy. It's got red markings and red decals. to further differentiate it between that and the big yellow one that I had done before. But that's going to be our build for this week. I'm going to see if there's any lighting that can be put into it. It's got headlights on it, so maybe we can put some lights into it. But that's our build for this week. So without much ado, let's try to finish out 2021 with a big old truck, and we'll see how much of it we get done before the, well, around here it's the acorn, before the acorn drops. Okay, it's taken a good chunk of the day. Still on the first real day of construction, and all I've managed to couple together is this little bit of, this is the front of the trailer, I guess. This is where the cab would sit. The cab sits like that, and this is where the trailer would hook into, and you can see there's a ton of detailing, and I'm saying I'm choosing my words carefully. It's a load of detail. It is a crap ton of detail, and this being a good kit in the vein of a Bandai kit, you really don't need to glue a lot of this together, which is handy, because to get in behind there and do a decent paint job on any of this, I'm going to want to remove a lot of these top details and paint it and layer it up as I'm going. I wanted to take care of some parts before I even got into the main cab, because again, this is sort of like one of those Rubik's Cube things. Once you put it together, it slides in and slots in and does all this fancy stuff, and then you may not be able to get it apart later on when you want to go in and do anything. I'm going to have to see how it's built, how it's designed, to see whether or not I can even get in there to put any lighting in, because as I've said, once you build it and you put the nine other layers on top of it, it may not be easy to go back into it. So the thing about not having to glue it together means I can do most of the assembling and then pull it apart if I have to. It's got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's got 16 wheels, and they all go round and round, and they all look like this. And of course, here are all the hubs for them. Here are all the wheels. But so there is a ton of detailing and a ton of painting to be done. If you want to paint this, obviously you have the choice of not painting it, but why would you go through life that way? There's painting to be done, and then there is decaling to be done, and then of course a goodly amount of weathering. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to do some of the major section work, like I could do, I think the next thing I want to do is take on this cab at the back and get all, or the big trailer done, and then we'll see how much of that we could tear back apart and detail and repaint. This nice pattern here, I can tell, is going to look good with some washes on it. So that's what I'm kind of doing, going poking around. You kind of have to build the complete section once you start on it, but you don't have to build it front to back. So I'm still picking and playing with parts. Okay, work is continuing, and I am getting kind of tired. There's a lot of pieces putting together. Working on the trailer part of it now, the pull behind, and making sure everything here is nice and lined up. And here is the big old honking trailer. You know, if in a different world, I would make that a really futuristic looking Optimus Prime, because it's just a very nice semi-trailer. You could do a wandering Prime very easily with this, I think. But what I'm going to do now is just a bunch of mindless repetition, and that is putting all of these hubs together. I could simply just go through and do an assembly line, and because they're all going to need to get done eventually, so might as well just take the time and do it. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, and it is day 2 on the real building part of this kit, and I have sequestered the cab, or the big trailer, off into the other room because it's taking up a lot of space, and I'm to the point now where I would like very much to do some priming or some undercoating. I don't, because this kit is molded in colors, you don't want to prime over top of those colors like I'm going to be painting on top of that. Now I'm building this just for the giggles because I'm using the other trailer. And it's not like you can interchange them because of the way the decals go, really. You are meant to decide which set of decals you're going to use and adorn your cab accordingly. But that means you have basically eliminated one of the trailers. So I'll use that for a I don't know, make a nice pencil box or a paint holder or something like that. But I'll finish decorating that up. Again, here we have the this is the part that the cab goes into, or the trailer hitch goes into, and it's just all kinds of detail. So I need to take some of these pieces back off that I have put on yesterday that are only press fit, and paint in around there. I can get in there with the airbrush and some black paint, and then bring it back out with various gunmetals and grays and things like that to give it some detail. But that kind of stuff needs to happen on all the undercarriage parts and the axles and all of that kind of stuff today. So I am stripping parts back down, really, in some cases stripping them back down to their components so that I can put the base coat paint on them. Alrighty, I've just been out in the last few minutes. Of course, it's only 75 degrees outside on the 29th of January, or 29th of December. And doing some base coating and some priming. I gotta tell you, if you are looking for a good basic black primer, this is from Lowe's, although I'm sure other stores would have their own version of it. It's their generic spray paint black, flat black Project Source paint. It's like $1.50, $1.40 for a can. For a big can, and it does a darn fine job of a good flat black. And a lot of times I've had problems with flat blacks because they've come out splotchy where the flatness wavers, and that's among the high dollar brands. But I got this just as a primer, just to see, and good golly, that's some good flat black paint. So you may want to check it out if you've got one in your neighborhood. So I've spent the last little bit, most of the afternoon off and on, working on the cab, and there's only so much of this I can do. I've been going around in circles here trying to see what bits I can do without having to paint the interior. I've got the interior put together, and of course this all slides into this shell here like that. But once you do that, you're kind of stuck with it, and I have to decide whether there's going to be any lighting in there or not. I might want to put a dome light in there or something. And there's figures to paint that go in there, and seats and all that kind of stuff. And then everything else kind of Rubik's cubes around it. So you got to commit to that. I haven't done that much yet. So I've been going around and then looking further in the instructions and seeing, well, this back panel that goes on, I can add the extra pieces to the back panel because I haven't, they don't interfere with anything. They're not dependent on anything else. So that's the kind of work I've been doing. And these yellow stripes that are molded in yellow, I want to make sure that I don't glue those down or stick them on. They get, if I'm not mistaken, in this iteration, they get red decals. Yeah, they all get red decals put on top of them. So it's really not going to matter how clean I keep them if I'm going to end up putting a decal on them. So I might as well put them in place. That actually frees me up for a lot of this, because I can go ahead and glue these down knowing that I'll be putting red decals over the top of them. Or I could take them off completely and paint them red and then stick them down when I'm ready to stick them down. So let me see which of these get red decals and which of these. Looks like everything that is going on the cab that is yellow is going to get a red decal on it. Unfortunately, there looks like some instances where there's writing on that decal, and if that's the case, then I am better off using the decal. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, these are the decals, and let's just pick this piece. Yeah, that looks like that whole thing gets, that would be this decal right here. And it's got writing on it, and so I'm better off using the decal, and what that will make sure is that all of my reds are the same color. There's no sense introducing a new red in paint. So yeah, that now I'm back to being free to go ahead and glue those pieces down, knowing that I'll be putting a decal over top of it. Also worked on the voice module, which is the gimmick of this model, is it's got a sound module. Unfortunately, the sound module has speech lines from the movie that are in Chinese and don't do me a lick of good, but here it is. I stuck a battery in it so you can listen to it. Now, if it just keeps going and going. If anybody knows or wants to provide a translation for that, I would be greatly appreciative. Because I don't, like I said, I don't have a blind idea of what they're saying. So this whole panel comes off here, and that's what allows you to change the battery when the time comes. It's not the easiest of things to do, but it can be done. Now, I did not get a battery with the kit because you cannot mail things with batteries in them, so I had to go out and find a battery to go in it. But it just goes in like that, and then the faceplate covers it. But good, now I know I can go ahead and glue these guys down and it's not going to hurt anything. So yay, that's a yay and a happy. Good morning everybody, it's Thursday. It's week 1 on the Wandering Earth cargo truck, and I've had a change of plans. I am not going to be trying to light this thing up, only because, well, there's 2 good reasons. One, as I said before, this thing is a Rubik's Cube. It's parts inside of parts with more parts on top of it. It's not like a simple model shell where you can get to the inside and there's open area to run wiring and all that kind of stuff. I think the little voice thing on it, that it has the audio thing, is enough of a gimmick. I don't need to gild that particular lily anymore. And B, I've got another more fun model that is, well, I don't know if it's more fun yet because I haven't built it yet. But there's another model incoming, another kit that I will be doing lighting on. So I'm going to save my energy for that. But we're getting back to the cargo truck, and I've got a lot of it primed. A lot of it has been pre-blackened. And today we are going to start working on putting this back together by first taking some grays and some gunmetals, and we're going to start bringing some of this detail back out. And then once the detail is more indicated, then we can reassemble the parts back on top and kind of get them happy again. Once the model is completely built back to some spec of decency, then then the trick is to decal it and then to put the snow on it, because the snow happens on top of everything. The decals should be part of what the thing looked like when it was new. You know, how you would paint it. It would, if it came out of the factory, it would come out painted, and then it all gets weathered at the same time. And in this case, weathering is the correct term for it because it's actually weathering. So I'm going to start working on the trailer and the undercarriage for the trailer and all of that. And then we'll go back and put in some work on the cabin and the cab. Yeah, I call this chapter Fun with Rust, because that's what I'm doing. I'm slopping on some of the Vallejo rust texture. I got it really diluted, really watered down in a cup like this. And I'm taking a big old brush and I'm just slopping it all over the place. And then I'm wiping it off. And you come up with something like this that lets the rust settle where it wants to settle. And then after this has happened and dried, I can go back over and highlight some areas with a good spraying and a dry brushing, and get, you put the rust on and then you knock it off. And this is part of the multi-layered look, because we have got this piece that goes in on top of it to give you even more dimension. So again, 0.03% of the world will ever see this, but we'll know it's there. It adds to the verisimilitude, which is one of my favorite words. The verisimilitude. It just gives it a lived-in look. And I'll hit this with hit the high spots where, you don't want to overthink it, obviously. It's a model after all. But you think in universe, this would get very little maintenance. So, rust is going to build up. And once that sits on top of it, I can pick out a little highlight here or there with not a chrome silver, but a gunmetal. It's just something with a metallic nature to it to bring up that color. And then this whole thing is going to sit in like this. So that tells me that the area behind the wheels really needs to have its own. Go ahead and pop that in place just for the sake of the show here. That tells me where some griming needs to happen in behind these wheel wells. Okay, so let's go proceed with the slopping, because this is going to get the most abuse of all. You figure this is where the tires are. Well, I'll pop a tire in here just to be sure. But that's where all the road salt and everything else and the grunge happens. So this is probably the dirtiest spot on the entire vehicle. So we're gonna have some fun with some streaking grime in oil spills once we get rid of or get done with the engine oil, or the rust. Sorry. All of this stuff happens in an area where it doesn't get any decals or paint job. This is the undercarriage. Good morning, everybody, and happy New Year's Eve. It is the 31st of December in the year of 2021, and I'm going to work normal day today. No reason not to. I could still, if I cut out a little early, I could still get this video done and uploaded like a normal Friday. And Friday, the last work day of the week, by the way. But I can get the normal procedure done if I cut out a little early and still get everything uploaded on time. None of the festivities that I plan on going to are going to start before my normal upload time anyway. So there. I was grunging and grunging until my grunger was sore, to paraphrase the Grinch. And then I grunged something I hadn't before. But I am gone back to starting to work on the cabin. Now the cabin, or the cab of the truck, and the trailer, top of the trailer, have been kept relatively clean. I've not grunged any of those up. I've been basically doing the drivetrain and the undercarriage, things like that, and the part where the trailer hitches onto. Those I've been grunging up, but the other parts I've been trying to keep relatively clean, because they get the lion's share of the decals. So I'm actually to the point where I need to start decaling, because I need to start putting things together. Sorry, I'm saying a lot. Here is, as an example, here is an example of the front fender, and this is where the headlight would be, and some turn lights and that kind of stuff. And that's all the space you would have to do any lighting. So that's reason number one why I decided not to light this, because it kind of gets applied, like this piece gets applied to the front bumper here, and really that's pretty much all you get. So there's not a lot of room behind there to even run wiring. So that's why I've had to. That's reason number one why I've decided to forego lighting on this thing. Let's see what else. Well, I need to start putting the cockpit together, and I did a quick rewatch of the scenes in the movie that show the inside of this, and it's a jumbled up mess. You don't see. I mean, what you see in the window here, I would have almost preferred if they had just stuck a decal behind the windows that showed, a photo of what the cab looked like, because it was a hoarder's nightmare. Let me see if I can find a still frame, and I will show you the reference that you've got for it. Okay, here's a still frame, and I don't dare run any video on this, or else I'm sure I'll get flagged. I don't know why the Chinese are so picky about their own IP when they're not that picky about ours. But that's a discussion for another day. But you could see just how jumbled up and with wires hanging down, and the kit has the basic geometry right in that there are two seats up here and that there are seats on the side, but it completely forgets the seats that are the consoles that are in the center here. It has one long strip and that's it. But I mean, there's none of this interior wall detail is present in the kit. So as I said, I would have been happier had they just decided to make put a photograph in there or something. And here's a shot of it with looking from the windows towards the back wall, and you can see all the stuff that's going on here that doesn't exist in the kit part itself. So there's a whole lot of detail there. You could make a career out of just accurizing the cabin for this. And I don't know how far it would get you, but I do like the interface here. Both the pilot and the co-pilot have this volleyball-sized control that they manipulate around. It keeps both of their hands on the controls. I like the design of it very much. It's got that alien vibe to it, where everything is used and grunged up, but it's just not represented in the kit that well. So we're going to have just a very, very basic 2 seats, red painted astronaut, or red painted pilot and co-pilot. You don't see that much in through the windows anyway, so I just think it was a missed opportunity for them to have at least broke up the sidewalls a little bit. Here you can see as a contrast, this is the cockpit. Room for the console with the little balls on it. Now we do have some decals to put down on that. And then we have, let me see, this is the ceiling piece sticking down. And then you have the windows that come up through this would be the outside windows, and the light shines down through that into there. So you can get some sunlight into the cabin, but as you can tell, those sidewalls have no detailing, and they just have the barest indication of the seats there, and nothing showing the complicated nature of that. So like I said, it's a very, very basic cabin. So I'm just going to do up the decals and paint up the chairs. I've got the chairs here. I've got to paint the pilot and co-pilot red for their spacesuits. They're drying over there. Then we could start putting stuff together. The reason why we're forced to do this early is because of the nature of the design. There's a decal that has to go on this inside right here, that once we put the cabins together, is going to be dang difficult to get to. And I think there's another decal here. And when you put these two pieces together, well, let me see if I can stack them without setting off the audio clip. This is the amount of space you have between them, and it's difficult to get in there sideways and do any sort of painting. So you got to do it now, and then you have to put this section in with the completed cabin, or else the whole thing doesn't stick to the back wall. So it's a complicated mess. Take my word for it. So now we're going to start putting some decals down, and we're going to do the ones that are going to be the troublesome, so that we can get them down, get them sprayed with a clear coat, and then we can put the rest of the cab together. The tabletop is turning into a confusing mess because I've got all of my decaling stuff out while I still have my painting stuff out, and that rarely happens. I usually clean up one to make room for the other, but I'm kind of doing both at the same time here. I've got the decals in the helm and navigation consoles. Call it what you will, that's still a helm and navigation console. I've got the decal on the inner side of this cabin part, and it's weird because you have to remove this part to put the decal under it, and then put that part back on and decal over it. It is this right here in the instructions. That's why you don't glue things together. You have to decal around it. So that is in, and I've got some microset on top of it because I want the rivet details that are underneath it to come up through, and that'll probably be best served if I put some microset on there. And this is ready to move to the side now. I've got the inside of this part to do next, and it's got another weird little funky decal that goes right there. So let's get that one out and put it down. Alrighty, this decal is down, and that seems to be the last of the decals that need to go down during the process of construction. Everything else looks like it goes on at the end. So let's see. I've got the wee astronaut, or the wee navigator and pilot. Trying to get a focus behind that. Wee characters that need to go in. These are our 100th scale, so they are a little bit tinier than 1/72nd scale, and they will go in here. And I'm going to do just a little bit of, maybe try to do, I neatened up those seats, the floor and the walls around the seats, but you know, it's all for naught. You don't know how much of this is ever going to be seen. So you put the ceiling on it, and then you put it up to a light. Let me see, there's the, bring the light down here, and shine it in there, and you wonder how much detail you're ever going to see inside that. You probably will see just enough to know that there's something in there, but that's about it. Yeah, I've run into my first real disagreement with this kit. And I mean, it's been a really fun build. It's been a really logical, straightforward build. But there's one thing I think that I think I've got a better solution than what they suggest. I'm trying to fit the inner cockpit or the inner cabin into this piece. Taking everything back off of it that has not been glued on. I'm being careful not to smudge that decal, and getting this insert pushed all the way into the front. Very, very difficult. Very difficult. And what made it more difficult was having this back wall on. As a matter of fact, when I was putting it in, I ended up pushing the back wall into capsizing it because I was putting too much force on it. And I'm thinking that a better way to build this would be to build it without the back wall on it, and then put the back wall in place after you've got the rest of the cockpit attached or pushed into place. This is a very nice view, by the way. Let me see if I can get a light up in front of that. That would be an interesting kit by itself. I mean, that's a neat view. And of course, once you have the windows, you can see, once the characters, or you have it in place, the characters are fairly easy to see against that front window. So for the amount of detail that's in there, you do see it. But I think it would be more, it makes more sense to assemble this without the back wall and then chunk it in at the end. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I've just finished hand-to-hand combat, I think. That's certainly what it felt like. That's the problem with these press to fit or snap together or really tightly engineered kits, is that you can strain a muscle pushing them things together and getting everything to fit just perfectly. But I've got everything lined up here except for all of the highly breakable details that get planted on here. I still have to put the fenders on and that sort of thing. But that is the cab with the really hard to get to. You can imagine what this would be like now trying to put those decals in there. But those are the hard to put decals in. And now that this is all of one piece, I can do a weathering pass on it that, well, I don't want to weather it where the decals are going to go. So maybe I don't do a weathering pass. Maybe I just finish putting the decals on it and then do the final weathering pass. But you can really see the guys in there. And of course, having them with a red suit really helps. But when the light's shining on it just right, you can see the pilot and the co-pilot in there just fine. What I was talking about is weathering. I was trying to remind myself the back of this could stand some weathering, because that is, A, there's no decals going on there, but B, that gets pushed up against that, so it should be weathered like the back of it. So that would be the last bit of thing to do, is re-screw this thing down to the undercarriage, and I need to see where, that weathering doesn't look so bad. That doesn't look so bad. I don't think I need to go whole hog on that. Let's go ahead and get this back in place, put the screws back in it, and let's see, I need to get, go ahead, this one screw's already in place. I need to find my magnetized screwdriver, because these wee screws, yeah, I don't think that's fitting. Gotta put a lot of pressure on these things. I had the other screw right in front of me. Let's see, I can't get, there we go. Okay. Like I said, very well engineered, but you gotta follow their instructions to the letter. With the exception of that back wall, like I said. I still don't like how that back wall looks. Yes, I hear you. Is that not sitting down square? Is that what the problem is? No, that looks right. I got to be careful when I'm pulling on this, pushing on this, that I'm not hitting any of these little weird little... Oh, stop. And nothing's going to keep going on for a while. All of these little bits and bobs that stick up are right in your way. See, and I'm pushing and I'm pulling them off even as I'm trying to avoid doing that. You got to be very careful about your parts. Continuing work on the cab, and while I have maintained throughout this entire build that it is something that you do not need to glue the parts together. They fit very well. It is a very tightly engineered and a much like a Bandai kit. It's the same discipline. You don't need to glue anything. Well, I have found a piece that needs to be glued, and it's strictly for aesthetics. I mean, it holds in place without the glue, but here's what it is, and I'll show you. I've got putting the front fenders on, and these are the bits that would have lights in them if I were going to light them. These are the front fenders. This one is in place, but it needs, oh hush, it needs to be pulled up in alignment here, and there's no little tab for it to stick into. You just need to pull it up and like glue it in place so that it's on the same level as this. So I'm just going to pull it up and put a little spot of glue and hold it in place till it dries. Like I said, it's holding in place. The kit part doesn't need the glue for that, but it does need strictly for alignment. Okay, I've run into another decal issue, and what is a good model build without Lou having problems with his decals? There is a handlebar piece here that I had glued down. It was one of the myriad details that were stuck to the outside of the cab here. And now I come to find that there's a decal that has to go under that. Well, I thought it was maybe a two-part decal or something, but no, it is a singular decal with two little holes poked in it. Well, that's no bueno. So I had to very carefully remove said handlebar piece so that I can put the decal down over it and not worry about having to cut slits in the decal to make it fit. So I'll just put that down and then glue the handlebar back over top of it. Alrighty, I've got this decal down, and it's got the micro set on it, so hopefully it'll melt into place. I also had to cut that little ningy out of there, out of the side there, so that it would wrap around. Surprising that they didn't have that included. They are so thorough in the rest of their decals to even cut darts into places where it needs to fold over. So I was surprised to see that wasn't accounted for. Alrighty, as you can tell, I've got all of the decals laid out that go on this side of the trailer. And the first thing I am made aware of is how closely I have painted this trailer to match the color of the darker part of the decal. It was not that color on the kit. The kit was a much lighter gray. But then I look at the color of the chart there, and I come back to the idea that I'm actually very close to what color it should be. And you'll notice that the decals have that coloration is only very slight difference between the color of the trailer and the darker stripe. So I think I'm actually closer to the mark than I thought I was going to be. So what I want to do is basically just start dunking these in water. I've got out the heavy duty solder set just in case I have to melt the decal around some details. Now I know I've got this door. I've got this door that's got a lot of changes in elevation that the decal's going to have to scooch down around. And they were very careful to cut them with the little... this is why I was saying about the other decal, why it surprised me, because they went to some great pains here to follow the lines of these with the decal itself. But they did not do it on this one, which is the big name and number, this guy here. They didn't cut that into pieces. That's just supposed to mold down around the... there, I'm trying to see the white in the reflection there. But it's supposed to mold over these stanchions and whatnot. And they did not cut it up like they cut up the other ones. So, let's start laying them down. This will be the fun, showy part. Okay, the first decal is down. It's the big one up front. And honestly, before I started this, I wasn't even aware there was an indented stripe here. I had painted all this, hadn't even given it a second thought. But when I started putting this down, I realized how well that was going in, and I was wondering, ooh, looks like there's an indent there, and son of a gun, it lines up perfectly. What's fun is you can actually read these decals and what they say on them. And this one says, well, You can read it for yourself, but it says protection module on it. Ownership subject to a security agreement filed with the Surface Transportation Board of the Wandering Earth Project, is what the English says on there. I'm kind of surprised that it has English on it, to tell you the honest truth. But there you go, and I'll continue this down the rest of the way. Here's a strange thing I've noticed. No matter how clean you think your surface is, how flat, how level, how unblemished, when you put a decal over it, you start seeing all these little pucks and dust bunnies and whatever, and the decal itself is clean when it comes off of the paper. It's got to be something here in the finish of the paint that you think is so perfect, and it really isn't. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. It's just an interesting thing that I've seen developing. Once you put a flat coat over it, I'm sure a lot of that's going to disappear. Okay, so we've got all of the main red stripe down. This is giving me a very A-Teams vibe. I don't know why, a cross between Optimus Prime and the A-Team van as far as the colors. But everything's wrapping around the all the little details like it's supposed to. That CN11403, it's a very unfortunate place to put that raised panel because it just makes the 114-03 look smaller than the rest, but it's actually wrapping around top and bottom of a raised panel. But it's supposed to do that. I'm doing these stripes now, and they should be very easy because there's no obstructions. They're just laying down flat, and that will be everything that's needed to go on that side. I'm very curious to see how this is gonna dry in and pucker down around that door detail. Looks pretty good now, but we'll see. And then I think the next thing we'll do is this back gate, and that may be it for today. And in fact, this week, and in fact, this year. Okay, because it was so simple and they were so basic, I broke down and did the decals that went on the top. They're just stripes here. And I noticed there it was a flaw in the printing of the decal. These last ones here did not have the little holes opened up in them. All they had were the white carrier film, or the white undercoat. But once you put a little water to them, they melted right away. So these look good. This is the side, this is the top. I'm going to put this aside, and I think the last thing we're going to do today, because it's getting kind of on into the afternoon, is what goes on the back gate. I'm going to put this aside and have some of the weirdest shaped decals I've ever seen. But those all of these go on this back gate, and that will be a great way to finish up the decaling for today, I think. This tailgate is going to be a major stress test on the decals, because that's just like a washboard that this is fitting over. So how well it's going to sink down into those, I have no idea. I'm going to brush it with a little bit of the Solvaset to pucker it in there, but I'm surprised they didn't build in a longer design into it, so that when that puckered in, it stayed the same shape as or the same width as the rest of the stripes. What they've done is designed all the stripes to be the same size, regardless of the fact that it has to go into those crevices. So I'm curious to see how that's going to dry. The weirdest ones are yet to come. Those are the decals that are shaped like that. That's all one decal. Weird. I mean, the carrier film is very, very tight to these, so there's no problem like that. It's just that why wasn't that cut up into several pieces is my question. Now, I feel like I just completed a PhD in decaling. a pH decal is what I just achieved. Look at this. That is wrapping decals all over 3 different layers here. There is a base layer, a middle layer, and then a top layer of decals, and they're all sitting on top of each other. I mean, kudos for the design work, but man, oh man, that's a complicated decaling there. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know, it's so close to the gray that I painted. Why did I bother putting those decals down? And here's the real truth of it. This is the color of the plastic. That's the color I painted it. If I had put those decals straight down on the color of the plastic, they'd have been really obvious and cheap looking. This is actually not that, this bottom gray is not that far off of the paint gray. So then you would have seen more of this, but then this would have looked like it was blending into the plastic. So I don't think there was a really good answer in any of that, but that's what we've got. So let's see, I've got this side done, I've got the top done. I don't want to start putting anything on the other side, because to do that it would mean laying this down on top of wet decals or decals that might not be completely cured, so I don't want to do that. So I've done all of the decaling that I can do without stepping on top of myself. If I put this back in, you'll get a idea of what the back hatch looks like with the decals in. And you know, of course, this all runs the risk of being covered up in snow anyway, so there's only so much energy I'm going to put onto it, knowing that that's a possibility. So let's put this aside. We are going to, I think, do a little cleanup here, and I got to find the other long screws here that go to screwing the cab down to the trailer. You know, I've got this one last decal I can put down because it actually goes on the back here. It actually goes on that side, so I'll go ahead and put that down. And let's see, there's one screw. There's the baggie. Yeah, it's time for a little cleanup and then a reassess here on what, there's the other screw I was looking for, a reassess on what I can get done today and where I should be leaving it. Okay, here's all pieced together now. This is not attached down, but it's sitting in its rough position. It needs to be pushed down and then screwed, but that's not going to happen today. But here you go. Of course, there's a lot of decaling has to be done on the cab, certainly, before we're done. We're ready to call it done. But I put it on some nice white paper towels so it looks like snow. But that's where we're at the end of 1 week. We'll finish this up next weekend, or next week into the middle of next week. As I say, I've got the next project incoming. That promises to be fun, and I will spend some time putting some lighting into that one. So no lighting into this. But that's where she sits at the end of first week. Let me get the camera down close so you can see what's going on. And then into there, and like I say, once we start putting the snow on it, it's really gonna come to life, I think. But if you look carefully, you can see the pilot and co-pilot in there. And that, good friends, is not only how we're going to close out the week, but how we're going to close out the calendar year of 2021. We'll be finishing this up next week. I'll be looking forward to chunking the snow on top of it. Even if I can't have it outdoors, I can have it on my models. So until next week, when we'll be finishing this up, I don't know exactly how it's going to go because I said I have another kit inbound that I want to jump on as soon as I can. So I want to maybe work on this weekend some. I can finish up the decals on the other side so that I am ready to put the snow on top of it and finish this kit up, and then be able to be ready when the next kit comes. So until that blessed day, y'all be good to each other. Have a happy, safe New Year's Eve. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Don't do anything I would do. You have that gray area. That's where you live. One of my favorite bits from Kernels of Wisdom from Tony Stark. Don't do anything I would do. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. You have that gray area in between. See you next time.